Thank you for that introduction and good afternoon to everyone. I am happy to be standing in front of you today to present the Institute's new project in collaboration with the Open Information Partnership, which focuses on uncovering gender-based disinformation in the Polish media space during the last elections in October, April, and the last European Parliament elections. The research was conducted on media sites such as X, Facebook, and YouTube, and focused primarily on women. So, in the analysis, we first define what is gender-based disinformation. There is no one-set definition for gender-based disinformation. Therefore, we see it as the intentional spread of false information used to harm or discredit a person based on their gender. This is most frequently aimed at women or members of the LGBTQ community, and which is why there's often themes of sexism, misogyny, homophobia, as well as transphobia. Aside from trying to discredit the individual, it also seeks to spread social and political beliefs which are usually anti-woman and anti-LGBTQ. They often go after high-level politicians as well as activists in order to reach a wider set of audience. Therefore, overall, we see gender-based disinformation as aiming to discredit women in politics, as well as create obstacles for their electoral success and further discourage them from participating in the public sphere. Along with gender-based disinformation, we often see hate speech. Even though they are two different phenomena, it is vital to understand both, as hate speech often inspires as well as predicts future gender-based disinformation narratives. We define hate speech as any discriminatory language which uses a person's characteristics such as gender, age, or nationality, etc., in order to create a very negative image of them. And similarly to gender-based disinformation, hate speech often also has themes of sexism, homophobia, transphobia, as well as misogyny. Now, the difference between hate speech and gender disinformation is that hate speech does not intend to mislead. Disinformation purposely wants to mislead a person for a specific purpose, while hate speech does not necessarily aim to do so. Hate speech could be as simple as someone airing out their negative thoughts about a person or a topic. Hate speech, though, does create an environment in which gender-based disinformation can flourish and be more believable. For instance, if we constantly are exposed to the idea that someone is unwise, then we come upon a disinformation narrative which claims that they did something or said something unwise, we are more likely to believe it because we are already surrounded by so much negative information. Therefore, we see that these narratives become more believable, they reinforce stereotypes, and it makes politicians harder to prove that they are credible, as they are being judged not based on their politics, but who they are as a person. In the Polish social media, there is a difference between the hate speech, which is aimed at male politicians, versus female politicians. Hate speech, which aims its goals on male politicians, often focuses on their political views and associations, versus hate speech, which focuses on women. It often goes after their characteristics, such as gender. Recently, the most popular topics about women focused on intelligence, emotions, motherhood, and physical appearance. All of these are very common gender stereotypes used against women. That women are that are too emotional, are unintelligent, they're expected to be mothers, and are expected to always look nice or care about their physical appearance. Most of these themes were very closely tied with the current political climate in Poland. Ever since 2020 and the tightening of the abortion laws, the topic of women has been very popular in the social media. It can range anywhere from abortion to jobs, representation in government, and even migration. With so many topics focusing on women, it is no surprise that many of it does end up being hate. Some of the most popular topics focus on abortion, migration, feminism, health for women, which was a slogan used by some of the political parties during their campaigns, the lesser-known counter-movement, which was sparked by Health for Women, known as Health for Men, and the left is female. The left is female was also used as a political slogan and was used by both political spectrums on the right and the left side, but for different goals. For instance, the left side used the slogan, the left is female, as a way to highlight the importance of women in both the political and as well as the private sphere. The right side, however, used the slogan as a way to push any disinformation or hate which is aimed at the left side directly onto the women. The following are some of the most popular hate narratives. A lot of hate narratives focused on the physical appearance of women. It was not uncommon to see the campaign photos of female politicians alongside their real-life photos. And of course, this was used to show that these women edit their photos to look better. And of course, this has nothing to do with politics, and yet these female candidates are being discredited simply based on their looks. Feminists were described as fat, ugly, conventionally unattractive, and emotional. This was expressed through both text as well as memes and images. It often depicted screaming women or women from unattractive angles, saying that this is how feminists look like and this is how all feminism looks like. The feminist stance on abortion was seen as a threat to the future of society because the right side sees abortion as going against the natural right of a woman to be a mother. And of course, there was the popular trope that all feminists hate men. This usually stemmed from the misconception that feminism is about women being superior rather than reality, which is about the equality of the sexes. The idea that they hate all men was actually one of the main reasons why the movement Hell for Men started. It was because they believed that men are actually more discriminated against than women, and they used the higher retirement age as well as child custody laws in order to prove that. Hate against abortion usually came from the right side, and as I mentioned, it was mainly about disrupting the natural right of a woman to be a mother, which is why it was seen as a threat and something unnatural. Photographic comparisons of politicians was very popular. So while male politicians were compared to historical or current leaders such as Stalin, Putin, and Hitler, and yes, these are all very negative connotations, however, they are still being compared to leaders. Women, on the other hand, were being compared to activists, and these are not well-known activists. You would have to be chronically online in order to know who this activist is, as well as women who earn money through social media platforms. Now here we see this distinct difference. The politicians, male politicians, are compared to other politicians, while females are compared to people that are not involved in politics at all, and other women who have jobs which society frowns upon. And finally, the lack of intelligence was one of the most popular hate narratives. This came in the form of posts as well as one of the most popular comments in under other posts. In fact, there was a very popular Telegram video about the intellectual inferiority of women being spread, as well as the moral inferiority of women. Luckily, this did stay within the Telegram media space and did not make it outside. However, those who were in that media space were already exposed to this information that women are inherently inferior to men. Understanding hate speech allows us to understand why some gender-based disinformation exists, because gender-based disinformation often reflects many hate tropes and stereotypes which are being spread. The gender-based disinformation, which appeared in the cyberspace of Poland during the last few elections, focused on women being too emotional, being a mother, unintelligent, and sexualizing the candidates. This information came in the form of videos, texts, and altered images. Some of the most popular gender disinformation narratives dealt with motherhood and abortion. There was the idea that women of this age are too lazy to be mothers, which is why they fight for abortion. The left side wants to force every woman to have an abortion, and they want an abortion at any stage of pregnancy. The theme of unintelligence in women came in an ex post in which a user said that the New Left party wants to get rid of all EU borders because their candidates are too dumb to understand geography. This was accompanied by a video of a female candidate talking about her ideas and refusing to answer a question about all the borders which are all the nations bordering Poland because she felt it had nothing to do with the topic at hand and she thought it was questioning her intellectuality. Using this lack of a response, the user decided that this is a good enough reason to spread the disinformation that because candidates such as her are unwise, the new left wants to get rid of all borders. This was a very interesting phenomenon observed in cyberspace because often when there was disinformation aimed at the left side, it was often associated with women. It was a similar idea came up with posts about abortion. Whenever someone mentioned abortion, and for example, abortion being available at any stage, it was always associated or always put alongside an image of a woman, despite the fact that both male politicians and female politicians spoke about abortion. It was always associated with the woman, because when disinformation deals with a topic that is specific to the female gender, it always associates it with a woman. Another popular trope was women being too emotional. There was a video of a screaming woman claiming that it was a candidate for same, when in fact it was not. It was proven she was in a different city at the same day. However, the message was already spread. She is emotional and too unstable for politics. And finally, when we talk about gender-based disinformation, we often think of sexual images, altered sexual images. This unfortunately was seen in the cyberspace as well. There was an image of a female holding a sex toy, which was of course altered. There were claims by a female candidate that her altered nude photos were being spread around the web. Now, the altered image of the sex toy came from a woman on the left side, while the claims of the nude photo came from a woman on the right side. So we see that this problem affects women on both ends of the political spectrum. All of this also the image of a woman wearing a very revealing shirt in her workplace, which was later proven to also be false, but it was accompanied by the text saying that women want to be taken seriously in the workplace, and yet this is how they show up. Putting all of this together, disinformation makes female candidates look inappropriate for the workplace, too emotional, unintelligent, and even cruel to men. They are being discredited not only based on their politics, but also simply on their gender. It is important to note that not all disinformation against female candidates is gender-based. However, it is gender-based disinformation and sexist hate speech which discourages women from politics. It creates a very vicious cycle where gender disinformation uses existing stereotypes to discredit them, and if those disinformation narratives are believed, it further reinforces those stereotypes. It is harder for women to be seen as legitimate political candidates, which affects their electoral outcomes and discourages them from politics, therefore keeping the number of women in politics very low. This, of course, can hinder the society as well as political advances, because how can we move forward when half of the population is not being catered to? Female candidates have a harder fight because their gender is enough to discredit them. Not only do they have to convince the public that their ideas will be beneficial, and not only do they have to fight disinformation which exists upon the topics for which they stand, they first have to prove themselves worthy of even being in the spotlight. Gender disinformation has always been an issue and will continue to be an issue if we allow for the hate speech of women to persist in the social media. If we want to see more female leadership and more women in politics, we have to start drawing more attention to gender-based disinformation and how to combat it. We encourage you all to read the report, which will be published next month on our website. I thank you for your attention, and we hope you enjoyed the first day of the event.